scrape in there somewhere.
Hold on a second. Let me track it down for you.
Go
ahead, Jason.
Okay. We'll call the Italian Village Commission meeting of Tuesday, December 8th, 2020 to order. It's 4 p.m. The next commission monthly business meeting will be at noon on Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. That will be a virtual meeting held via WebEx. And the next commission meeting is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 at 4 p.m. Virtual meeting to be held via WebEx. I will swear in the staff. Kimberly, anybody else besides you testifying today?
No, just me.
Okay. Will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Kimberly Bernard.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
I do.
Great. Thank you very much. And we will introduce the commissioners present. Again, I'm Jason Sudi. David, will you state your name for the record?
David Cook.
And Lauren?
Lauren McNair.
Brooke?
Brooke Michael Smith.
Ben?
Ben Goodman.
And Todd?
Todd Boyer.
And I don't think I saw Shannon on there. Is she on there? Shannon, are you on there?
I haven't seen her either.
Okay, so we'll begin. We do have a quorum. Do I have a motion for the approval of the November 10th, 2020 meeting minutes?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great. I'll call the roll. David?
Approved.
Todd?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
And Jason, yes. Meeting minutes are approved. Staff, do we have a public forum today?
No, not today.
So let's talk about staff approvals. Where do we start on staff approvals this time? To be
Nolan, would you mind flipping to that page real quick? I have to apologize. I didn't print out an agenda, so I'm less than helpful today.
I got you. Page 8 is where I have an overall motion for staff approvals?
I'll move to approve the staff.
Great.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay, great. I'll call the roll. Todd?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yep.
Lauren?
Yes.
Ben? Ben?
Yes. Sorry.
And Jason, yes. And then I'll go through for abstentions. First one, 1052 Summit Street. Any abstentions? Okay, 1063 Summit Street. 304 Neruda. 822 to 824 Kerr. 36 East Lincoln. Okay, that's it. Anybody I missed? Any abstentions need to be recorded? Okay, so those are approved with no abstentions. We will go back to the top. Next are staff recommendations. For that, I will turn it over to staff.
All right, we are starting with application number 2, IV-20-12-006, which is 918 to 918 and a half Mount Pleasant Avenue. This is for the new construction of a 20 by 20 foot 2-car garage. The garage would be a story and a half with a single 16-foot wide garage door. There would be 2 gooseneck lights over the garage door, and there's also going to be gables beneath the vents. The west elevation would have 2 man doors with small lights next to them. There's a new asphalt paved parking space to the north of the proposed garage. There are also variances, which include building lot coverage, side yard setback, and side yard garage setback. We saw this last month conceptually, which the comments from that hearing are there. Commissioners at the business meeting were in favor of the design, but they had requested switching that parking space from asphalt to pavers, and they'd allow that to go to staff approval. But since I did not get the paver cut product sheet, I just want this on the record. And if we need to have any discussion with our applicant, to have it formally here. Staff does recommend the approval of the application with the condition that we do have those pavers and have that cut sheet before it's issued. And the basis for the recommendation is 3116.12, standards for new construction, specifically A. And I will turn it back over to you, Jason, so we can get, I believe, Bradley sworn in.
Yeah, Bradley, I see your name out there. Would you care to state your name for the record? Could you be just a little bit louder? I couldn't quite hear you. Okay, great. And if you raise your right hand, would you promise to tell the truth in your testimony this afternoon to the best of your ability?
I do.
Just so you know, you're pretty quiet, but we'll do our best. So is there anything that you would like to add to the staff's comments?
Let me turn the volume up. Can you hear me better now?
Barely. I can hear you, but it's real quiet.
Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, a little bit better. Let's try with that.
Okay. I don't really have a whole lot to add with the comments from Kim. The owner is on board with doing pavers, but they are hesitant to select any now until it gets built to see what best there. So I was hoping that we might be able to get an approval with the option to get staff review of the pavers that we ultimately select and get endorsements for the very easy.
Okay, staff, is that appropriate for as far as you're concerned?
Yes, although if we want to break off the pavers into a separate motion, that way Bradley can get the approval for the building of the house, especially if the applicants want to see how things look. So everything's not just contingent on that piece, but I will leave that up to the commission.
That sounds great. Okay, well, I'll go around and get comments from everybody. Let's start with Brooke. Do you have any comments?
No, not specifically. I think this is a nice project, so I'm definitely in favor of it. It looks good. And I think I see that the garage door was changed from maybe a previous garage door, and I think it looks great. So I'm good with this.
Okay, Todd,
No additional comments.
Lauren,
I have nothing to add.
Ben?
I think, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I think that as long as there any concrete paver, that I'm happy with staff just, we're keeping it in the motion and that staff deals with it later.
Okay, David?
I support what Ben just said, that the project, the garage, I think Kim just mentioned house, but we're saying this is a garage construction project, is appropriate, and as long as the paver is something that can be approved by staff, it is fine to go forward.
Sounds good. I don't have any further comments. So staff, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to do two? Do you want us to do one more? What do you prefer?
You can do one, just call out that the paver will be staff approval and I can issue that separately. So we'd have an approval for everything here. And then later on, once our applicants figure out what exactly they want, I'll issue that as a separate item.
Okay, sounds good. Is someone willing to make that motion?
I will.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Is the motion to approve?
Approve with the contingency that staff just noted, I believe, David, correct?
Okay.
That
Yes.
papers would be staff approved? Yeah.
I'll second.
Seconds, I'll call the roll. David?
Approve.
Todd?
Yes.
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
That's for me. Motion carries. Okay, great. Thanks for coming in.
Hold up, I still have to do the variances.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. There are 7 variances, all of which look pretty standard to me. Does staff, do you have any concerns on those?
No, staff does not.
Okay, any discussion from commissioners? If not, if someone wants to make a motion to support those variances?
Jason, you're
Sure,
asking to go forward with the motion.
Yeah, if someone's ready, unless anyone has a comment. Who can make that motion to support the variances?
So moved.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll call the roll. David?
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Brooke,
Yeah, yes.
and Jason. Motion carries. Okay, great. Good luck with the variances and good luck with the project.
All right, thank you very much.
Sounds good. We are on to continued applications. Number 3. So over to staff.
All right, this is IV-20-09-015196 East 2nd Avenue. We saw this a couple months ago. This is to demolish an existing trash enclosure that was built without IBC or HBO staff approval to install a new trash enclosure with a concrete slab on grade, wood fence, and enclosure gate per submitted drawings. The wood fence would measure 6 feet tall with 5-inch thick concrete posts, bollards evenly spaced along each side. The new trash enclosure would measure 22 feet by 9 5/8 inches wide by 13 feet and 6 1/4 inch deep. The enclosure would have 2 doors. As well, this includes to plant 7 new arborvitaes screening trees along East 2nd Avenue. The comments from the previous meeting are included below. Commissioners at the business meeting were much happier with the new design. There were questions about why the open fence was on the side facing that house that bordered the parking lot and not on the opposite side if you even had to open at all. Commissioners would like to see that the arborvitaes would be no shorter than 4 feet tall. There was a bit of confusion about how far the concrete pad extended. Commissioners wanted to keep it within the fenced area. One of our applicants, Manning, was able to clear up that confusion about where it was. I did receive a revised documentation as well. So the applicant moved that door to the opposite side, and they also clarified a couple things in the new documents. Staff recommends approval of the application with the conditions that the poured concrete is kept confined within the fence area, with the exception of the apron leading to the parking lot. But I believe the new drawings have it right up on the edge of the parking lot as opposed to having that apron there, and that the dumpster enclosure be either completely enclosed or moving that opening to that east elevation. Basis for recommendation is 3116.13 standards for site improvement A. And I believe we've got our architect, Christian Berardi, and I believe Manning was supposed to also join us, Manning Tarver.
I see Manning and Christian on there. So if you're both on there, if you could, we'll start with Christian. You could raise your right hand, state your name for the record.
Christian Berardi.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability to this afternoon. Okay, great. And then we'll go to Manning. Manning, could you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Yes, Manny Tarver.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, great. So over to both of you. Anything you want to add?
No comments from Christian.
Okay,
we will follow the direction provided.
Sounds good. Manning, do you have any other things you'd like to add?
No, I think everything is pretty much just out there. We should be good to go.
Okay, sounds good. The one thing I did want to clarify with staff is just because I knew that it was kind of going back and forth. I don't know if other people did, but I didn't have a problem if the concrete, as you mentioned, there was an apron, but then you said maybe there's not an apron. If they need to extend the concrete into the parking lot, as long as it's flush with the paving of the asphalt, I'm fine with that. If it is, from the standpoint of functionality for having the trucks being able to grab those dumpsters without damaging the parking lot. So I wasn't concerned about the cement or the concrete being outside of it on that side, just on the 3 sides that are planted. So that was the clarification I wanted to make. I'll go around the horn and see what everybody has to say. Let's start with Ben.
That was the same I would have asked for, so I have nothing additional and will support the project as presented here today.
Great. Brooke?
I have nothing to add. I will support it.
Okay, Todd?
Nothing to add. I appreciate all the changes they made.
I'm in favor of the changes that we've talked about.
Sounds good. Lauren?
I have nothing to add either.
Same here. Yeah, again, thanks for the changes you've made. We appreciate that. If I guess that's it. We'll just take a motion. Anyone care to
I'll
make
make
a motion? Okay, Lauren, who do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Lauren,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
and Jason. Yes, motion carries. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new applications. Number 4, whenever you're ready, staff.
All right, this is IV-20-12-007, 848 North Pearl Street. This application includes the installation of a 12-foot by 10-foot overhead door and moving a 4-foot by 7-foot exterior door. No permits have been issued and the work has already been completed, though I believe the applicant might correct me on that. I was able to talk with him a little bit today about things, so I'll leave him to explain a little bit more. Commissioners at the business meeting thought that having the doors so close to the residences was inappropriate. A full set of scaled measure drawings was requested in order for them to review the application. Concern was raised about the drain pipes and the lack of the curb cut in the area where the doors are relocated, as the commission thought it kind of looked like a Band-Aid. Staff recommends approval for a temporary enclosure with wood for the new openings until all elements of review are in place. HPO staff recommends a 90-day limit for this, although hopefully we'd see it back at next month's meeting. A complete package should also include correspondence with the building and zoning department regarding their opinion on placement, as HPO staff does not think that they would approve the doors in that location. The basis for recommendation is 3116.11, standards for alteration, which I'm not going to read all of those out. I will offer an apology because I should have been a little bit more on top of getting everything together for this one for both our commissioners and our applicants. But I believe Charles Hastelot is on for this application, so I'll hand it back over to you, Jason.
Great, and I do want to remind everybody from the business meeting that if that it's upside down, but then if you download it, I think then you can flip it over if you need to view it and it's upside down on your computer. So there we go. With that, what was it? Charles is the applicant. Charles, if you state your name for the record, raise your right hand, please. Charles.
I know he's on. It seems like we're having a little bit of problem with audio, Charles.
Yeah, looks like
his mic's
it's
on.
its way there. There we go. I hear you now. Charles, are you there?
That was me, Jason. Yeah,
Sorry,
the mic
Alex.
is on. That's all right. The mic is on, but the video was on earlier, but I do not see the video. And Charles, we cannot hear you.
Get my file straightened out. Okay. So I don't know, staff, what do you think? Should we?
I think that the best course of option is, Charles, if you could call in, we'll skip your application, move on to the next one, and then hopefully by the time we get done with that, we can circle back and your audio will be working, but we do need you to speak. So I believe there is a number that comes up. Is it in the top corner of the screen as well, or it's in that link? I don't know the link. It's in the invitation as well.
In the invitation, yes, at the top where it says meeting info, if you click on that, kind of in the upper left, you'll have a drop-down pop-up box that'll come, and that'll give you the information. I will also place the number in chat for everyone, just in case.
All right, so
let's move on to the next application then. We'll try to double back there when audio fixed. So this one is number 5.
Yes, IV-20-12-008. 698 North High Street. The proposed work for this one includes painting the existing storefronts a tequila lime and Hasbrook brown with operable aluminum storefront windows to be painted a chocolate brown. And the removal of 4 existing glass panes in the southern portion of the storefront, replace fabric on the existing awning with the Hartwell Fiesta striped fabric on the slope, and then the solid valance to be the fern color. And this also includes the installation of a 38 by 44 inch blade sign to replace the existing, which is approximately 11.3 square feet. It would be internally lit as Ben caught at the business meeting, as well as externally. This would also include the installation of decorative light fixtures beneath the awning and installation of a graphic applied to the elevation tower on the east elevation to replace the existing. The new graphic would measure 65 inches tall by 76.5 inches wide, which is about 2.5 inches wider than the existing. Commissioners at the business meeting appreciated the operable window design and thought that this is how operable windows should be done. The signage follows what was there, but the commissioners were not supportive of the internally illuminated portion of the sign or the tacos and tequila portion. There was a comment about the awning writing not being supported, but I did look through the Short North guidelines and they're mentioned in the basis for staff approval, but having the name on the awning is something that's done. We don't want things like I believe it's the phone number or like the web address to be on there. Staff recommends that the blade sign lighting be revised so it's not internally illuminated. The portions that are lit, really, they should be opaque. And if you wanted to do that kind of halo lit, they should have that opaque with the light shining behind it. Although I'm sure Ben can elaborate a little bit more on the technical terms there. Also recommends the removal of the tacos and tequila portion of the blade sign, and then the signage be installed into the mortar if not using the existing fixtures or holes and not the face of the brick. There was revised document sent out yesterday, which the commissioners all received. Hi, Charles. We can hear you now. Let us finish this one and we'll circle right back around to you. So with the basics for staff recommendation, the general Short North guidelines, the guidelines calling out the projecting blade signs and the awning sign, as well as the awnings. But I will hand this over to you, Jason, to sign or to swear in our applicant.
Okay, Carter, do we have anybody else that's going to be presenting today, Carter?
Yes, sir. Wayne Schick from Cameron Mitchell Restaurants is also on today, so the two of us.
Okay. I'll with you, Carter. Could you state your name for the record? Raise your right hand.
Carter Bean.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony this afternoon to the best of your ability.
I do.
Wayne, will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Wayne Schick.
Great. And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to your best ability this afternoon?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fantastic. Whichever one you like to start, go right ahead.
Sure. So Kimberly was leading into the fact that as of yesterday, we submitted a few revised pieces of documentation, and I'm not sure all of you have had a chance to review that, but essentially the scope of the changes since the business meeting consist of the removal of the tacos and tequilas portion of the blade sign, which was previously hanging down from the bottom. So that has been removed. The signage company, Columbus Sign Company, has also provided some sample imagery or precedent imagery of other signs in Italian Village that have similar lighting to what we're proposing. So we'd still like for that to be considered internally illuminated. And additionally, Mr. Cook asked for some information on what might go in the display window that's in the center of our storefront, where we previously had some an art piece. And Wayne has been with a local artist to develop a concept which isn't completely resolved yet, but there is documentation. These are actually the old renderings. The new renderings show the removal of the tacos tequila, the artwork in that window, and have some supplemental information with regard to the proposed artwork. So Kim, do you have access to the new package?
They are included in there.
Okay.
Nolan, if you can scroll down a little bit more, I do have it in red where it's the revised submission.
Thank you.
I don't like to take things out just in case we need to compare.
Wonderful. Okay. So what you're seeing now is the package that we reviewed at the business meeting. Here we go. Here's the revised submission. So as we scroll through, so this is just a note saying that the blade sign has been revised and that concept art is being developed. And the next 2 pages go into a couple of the local art pieces that will be combined to form what's being displayed in that window. It's a embroidered tapestry and a sculpture made from found objects by a local artist. So as we keep going here, the material palette has not changed. And now that we get into the renderings, you can see here that the tacos and tequila box has been removed from the blade sign. As Kimberly mentioned, we did retain the valance lettering, feeling as though it was something that was allowable per the signage standards. And in the center window there, you can see the suggestion of the artwork. Operable windows are as previously proposed and discussed. Keep going. Okay. So as we go through the sign package here, there is a page that was added showing a few precedent signs in the area. So here's that page. There are some either neon or LED types of signs that have been installed recently that of course are internally illuminated, and the rose sign, which has been there a while, has that internal illumination to it. So we were hoping that there was still some opportunity for discussion to have that internal illumination in our sign as well.
Wayne, did you have anything to add before we go through the commissioner comments?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a lot to add. We are hoping for the internal illumination on the main sign. You know, the short north standards do allow for new lighting technologies, and I'm just purely guessing that's how those previously shown signs were accommodated. So look forward to the conversation.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go through and Ben, you want to start this one?
Yeah, we can start with the presentation by Columbus Sign and the 4 examples. But while we're getting to that page, I'm a little confused because there are the illustration or the proposal has both exterior and interior illumination. Is that correct, applicant?
That is correct, yes.
And the purpose for that being?
Because there are face graphics that you see here that have that wood grain and items that wouldn't be illuminated by the internal. So the combination of having the external picking up the face graphics and the internal giving the punch to the actual lettering is desired.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's all the more reason why an external illumination might be the most appropriate for this. It's definitely a more gentle kind of light, and it would help reinforce the textures of your sign and graphics. But it is important to kind of flesh out the reasons why this is a borderline sign for the type of internal illumination we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And by and large, push-through letters are allowed. And by and large, we always expect that those push-through letters are going to be a kind of a standard book-style font as opposed to a display font or a logo-styled kind of font that you have for your El Segundo part of the graphics here. We also like the idea of order, such as you might see in row, but row kind of probably should be thrown out because it's been up for so long. It's not really a good reference point, except for that visually it does graphically what I think we would like to see most internal illuminated signage to do. But that said, the other two examples, or of the three, there were two that were neon or had baffles in front of a light cavity. So you can explore those two directions, but they are not pushed-through letters, or in any case, they're the type of internal quote-unquote illumination that we've been figuring to be appropriate for the High Street corridor. The retail sign is a wholly different thing, so we won't get into that. So could revise this so that you had a little bit of a vinyl opaque baffle on front of the El Segundo so that you can emphasize the edge lighting of those push-through letters, I think. Or you can just go with an exterior illuminated kind of approach where you have those lights programmed to be directed at the sign face. So that would be appropriate as well. Moving on, I'll just reinforce what I said during the business meeting, that the operable windows are definitely a measured and holistic architectural response for this storefront and for the neighborhood. I would support the graphics along the front lip of the awning, and I definitely support your removal of the tacos and such that was a little square sign below the El Segundo. That's all I have. Oh, I support the artistic window, and whatever that is, we think that's great.
Excellent, thank you.
Brooke?
Sorry, I have nothing to add. I think this looks like a really great project, and with regard to the appropriateness of the signage, I pretty much follow Commissioner Goodman's lead on that. So everything else I'm very much in favor of.
David?
Could I ask that we go up and look at one of the first of the proposed elevations of the building? I'm having a hard time seeing the windows that we're seeing in this picture that are all painted green, and it seems that one, it looks all green. If we go to the original submittal up front on the elevation, it looked like there was more black outlining or brown outlining. Maybe I just need to see that again. Carter, could you address the materials for the lights under the awnings? Are those in fact exterior light fixtures? Okay, notice we just passed it. Let's go back one. There was an elevation shot showing more two-tone color on the storefront. My reason for asking, it looked like in the earlier presentations, there was more definition of the architecture rather than this large green, all one color. We know that Monarch isn't an occupied space any longer, but it's all black. It seemed like the previous one had more definition of the architecture. We still haven't hit the one that okay, see it up there now? Where the windows have so much more and that storefront right below it. I think we need to be looking at that. To me, this has far more interest and defines the architecture of the storefront much better than just one solid paint color. Could we just have a kind of a discussion among the commissioners only on this before the client speaks? Do you see the difference I'm bringing up?
Sure, yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
good catch.
Okay, so that's going to be number one that I would like to raise as a commissioner, that I would like them to provide the storefront detailing that's far more like this than just one flat color. The second one is I want to applaud the two creative art ideas, the tapestry one and the sculpture. Gosh, that just looks right into the Short North Art District and something very creative. I'm going to miss the old one because I thought it was whimsical and added to the street level entertainment. But very happy that the client has come up with two very fresh ideas, and I would be supportive of either one of those. I am not supportive of the internal illumination of the signage as proposed. And I think that a couple of examples of, I was on the commission when Union was approved. It's a sculptural box. It's not a whole sign. It doesn't even say Union. It just has the U. And we did that as an art piece, was the way we put that one through. Pretty much the same for Steak Shack. So I don't see these as comparisons.
And I don't know how long it's going to go.
Okay, Lauren?
Sorry. I agree with what Commissioner Goodman and all commissioners have said so far. I think it's a really great project. I'm really excited about the art in the center. And I just want to echo Sign's about her statements about the signage. And I too was kind of wondering about the two-tone exterior. So curious as to why the applicant is choosing to do a single color or open to doing two.
Okay, and then Todd?
I'm kind of going to fall in line with everybody else here, I think. Support both or either art options. I like David's idea of the two-tone paint on the storefront. Do not support the internal illumination of the signage unless kind of solved the way Ben suggested it. Totally applaud the solution to the operable windows. I think that will become the new standard that we measure high street storefronts by, honestly. And the only question that I had or comment was, I think I'm okay with the lights that are underneath the awning as long as they are at least flush or higher than the bottom of the valance. They don't actually stick below the valance. And then I'm in support of that as well. That's it.
Okay. I'm not quite as concerned with the fact that there's an internal illumination in that kind of more push-through style. I just, I'm not crazy about both external and internal. I just think that gets us into a situation where we're going to have to kind of be continually dealing with circumstances like that. So for me, it kind of either or. And again, I'm fine. I think that the writing on the awning, on the flat part of the awning, is completely supported by the design guidelines. That's kind of what we were allowing in that original case, to have the name of the restaurant on the flat part of the flat. And other than that, I don't really have any comments, other than the fact that I think you're almost contractually obligated to pick that green based on the paint color. That made it probably pretty difficult to pass up. So I think they found their target market in this restaurant when they named that paint. So that's all I have. Carter, Wayne, would you like to make any further comments or clarifications?
Carter, I'll start here. The facade paint scheme, the designer does have the window frames some brown, but not as much as the previous Harvey and Ed's, and we can have her take another look at that, no problem. Some of the confusion is Harvey and Ed's went through 2 paint schemes. It was originally all green, and we were not happy with just the muted, the way it kind of disappeared into the landscape, and we went back with commission approval and did this 2-tone. So we will take another look at that. We definitely want more green, less brown, but we'll have our designer take a stab at that. And some of it, I think, is the rendering isn't showing the brown window frames as much. You can see it on what we're proposing on the art window more than the other windows for some reason. And then we are also excited about the art piece. It's 2 artists from Mexico that currently reside full-time in Columbus, and we're very excited about doing the project with them. And the illuminated signage, we can take another stab at. Carter, do you fully understand what Commissioner Goodman's recommending there with the edge illumination?
I do, yes.
Okay. So we'll study that, and we'll either come back with a edge illuminated version or a just externally illuminated version. And that's all I have. I appreciate the support on all the other pieces.
Great.
Agreed.
Staff, what is your recommendation at this point?
I would recommend continuing the blade sign because it sounds like our applicant has a little bit more work to do. We could also continue the painting if the commission would like to see that back again. Because remember, we can always move stuff to staff approval at our business meetings if we do have the quorum.
And then you're suggesting that we make a motion that approves the windows, the awning, and is there anything else I'm forgetting?
There is that other sign.
Oh yeah, the secondary sign. Does anybody have any comments on the secondary sign from the commission side?
I don't. I would actually, if everybody's okay with it, recommend that we just approve the hanging sign out front as the non-illuminated element, and then they could always come back with a revised internally illuminated one secondarily, and that would make the continuance of the paint of the facade a lot easier kind of conversation when that happens next month.
I mean, that probably only helps you, applicant. Are you interested in that and having us do a motion that approves an only externally illuminated one, but you can always then bring another version back?
I think it's 6 1/2 dozen. You know, we'll end up having the conversation either way. So whatever you'd prefer.
Yeah, I don't know. Staff, what do you?
I thought that would work, but that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, as our applicant said, 6 1/2 a dozen of the other. I might just continue it since it does seem like they're going to go ahead and revise it anyway. So that would save them a little bit of time. And then I also want to point out, Ben also did mention about approving the art. So that's not drowned out.
Sounds good. So is someone willing to make the motion on all the items that we are looking to approve?
I'll give it a shot. I'll move on application 20-12-008 at 698 North High Street that we approve the application that's presented here tonight with the following exceptions: that we're going to continue the paint scheme for the High Street facade, that we're going to continue the overhead line, and we're going to continue the piece that is at street level.
If I may, the challenge with the art piece, these are found items in Mexico, so I need to purchase them before someone else does. And then the artist is going to do a sculptural piece. And, you know, I've never went in an art studio and told the sculptor what to do. So I was hoping for approval of it in concept so we can purchase those and let the artist do what the artist does.
I don't know, Ben, it's up to you, but it sounded like there's general support on the art. Are you willing?
Oh, okay. I thought that we wanted to see that again. No, I can take that out of the motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
So just to be clear, we're continuing the blade sign and the paint on the front or the High Street facade, correct? Otherwise, a yes vote would be in favor of as submitted with the exception of those two items. Do I have a second?
I will second it with the understanding, or to make sure that the minutes say that the awning sign will only carry the restaurant's name once. Next door, Monarch went ahead and put their name on every awning, which was not ever approved and was in a code violation before the thing shut down. So I just want to make sure that the minutes or the motion clearly says that on the awning blade part of the valance that the name appears one time.
Good. Yep, I agree.
And that's your second. Second.
But the conversation open, I also recall somebody talking about the lighting underneath the awning having some limitations in terms of position. Do we need to make that part of the motion?
That was Todd, and I would definitely include what he said, that the light fixture is not to hang below the valance edge, the lower edge of the awning.
Is that what you said, Todd?
That's it.
All right, I'll add that to my motion then.
Okay, good. David, you second that?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will call the roll. Ben?
Yes.
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Okay, great. Thanks for revisions, and we'll see you when you come back.
Hey, Wayne, it's probably too early to ask, but is there a target opening?
Quite honestly, with COVID, we have promised our restaurateurs, our managers and associates, we wouldn't spend money on this until they were back and whole and prospering. So, but we hope to start construction early next year. We were hoping to be open by Cinco de Mayo, but it's probably midsummer at best at this point in time. So
great, good news. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to number 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to unmute our applicant and get him sworn in.
Okay, and our applicant is Charles, correct?
Yes.
Great. Charles, can you state your name for the record? Hold on, we need to get you unmuted.
For the applicant, you will have to unmute yourself. I cannot unmute you. So
okay, we're unmuted now.
Yourself.
Are you there?
Yes.
We can hear you now. Great.
Okay, good.
So will you state your name for the record, please?
Charles Hastelow.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, great. So we heard the staff report earlier. Would you like to make some comments based on that?
Yes, we did receive approved plans from the city of Columbus. And I thought I had forwarded a copy of the plans to Kimberly, but maybe I didn't.
Okay. So staff, you're awaiting to see kind of where we are in that mess?
Yes, although I think I've got part of the plans in here. It's just they haven't been approved by us.
No.
Somebody tell me, please, what number is that picture?
What?
The one before it.
Nolan, can you scroll up? Is that number 2?
Okay.
Or 3?
3.
Number 3.
That picture is the south side of the building, and we're on the north side of the building.
But the door is on the illegal door that was cut into this building is on this side, correct?
Correct.
And I want to come back to this slide when we go into discussion, but let the applicant continue.
Sounds good.
Well,
so, Charles, what else do you have to add?
I made the assumption that since the city of Columbus okayed the plans and approved them, that we were in compliance. We didn't want to do anything out of compliance. Right
and
there is the door. And the previous service door was about 3 foot in the opening on the right side of the door. We just moved it over.
Mm-hmm.
And we put a new door in since the other door was pretty well beat up.
Yeah. Okay.
We had no intention of doing anything outside of the code.
We don't care.
Stop.
Unfortunately, it's not a good situation. But okay, so let's go around to the commissioners. David, since you're already kind of in the middle of it, do you want to start?
Sure. And this is a really important for all of the commissioners to make sure you understand this. One of the objectives that was always part of the Short North guidelines and everything was to make a walkable community. And what we have is a set of residential houses that do have sidewalks in front of them. It stops at this property line. If you notice, this white PVC piece is above grade. It's just sitting up above. The large door cut drops down lower, so water would go in or under this door. And you can see the rest of the property doesn't continue the sidewalk up to the corner that is paved. And as a resident, I walk this area a lot. And I think that it would be important, first of all, the great big door is just too low in the ground and would not be a smart solution. There is an operable door on the other side of the building that even allows the beer cart to get out and go into a curb cut. We don't particularly want curb cuts in sidewalks. That doesn't make it walkable. And this drain solution isn't working at all. And I think this is a serious mistake what's been done, and that we should definitely support. We should definitely support the Preservation Office recommendation that we put a 90-day on this one.
I would like to cut in real quick. Charles, we will need you on video, please.
Okay.
Is he not on video?
We're not on video?
No, I think you want off video. We can hear you, but we need to see you as well.
There are some city regulations there.
Well, I'm not a computer guy, and I've got a assistant here. My friend of mine's doing the computer work for me.
All right.
And he's not really acquainted with your system. He's trying to get acclimated to it.
I know you guys are.
Wait, there you go. It looks like your camera's turned on, just real dark. I don't know if it almost looks like something's over top of the webcam to block it. It's a tape or something.
Is it any better now?
I'm trying to find it. Now I lost you.
No, Charles, it's still showing that black box.
Oh.
It's like your computer's on. Oh, now it's gone. Yeah, it feels like it's on. It just doesn't show anything. So I don't know if there's like a little piece of tape somewhere near the screen that is covering up the camera.
No, there's nothing up. The camera's in the middle, and it's got the green light on. I can see the green light on the camera. I apologize.
Very dark room. So at any rate, it sounds like, well, regardless of, obviously we need your camera for the testimony, but staff, is it all right if we kind of continue as far as the staff or the commissioner comments to get these on record?
Yes, I do recognize his voice. I've talked to him a couple times, and I do know that he was on video earlier. So okay. Charles, if you can try to fiddle with that so we can get you back, and the commissioners will keep going with their comments.
He's working on it right now.
Okay,
thank you.
Good. So, Brooke, would you like to go next?
Sorry. Yes, I would echo all the comments that Commissioner Cook made. I feel that it's unfortunate that the project has gone so far, and it is apparent that it needs some backtracking and some corrections made. So I echo Commissioner Cook's comments and appreciate his observations in this.
Okay. Todd?
I don't think I have anything to add beyond what Brooke and David have said.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I agree that it's unfortunate we are where we are. I actually don't think that it's inappropriate to have an opening like this, or just about circulation for, a design studio or some other office space. It's the type of use that's being proposed that's adjacent to this rather nice residential street, and that it kind of cuts off the possibilities of continuing that sidewalk on Prescott. I guess I'm hoping and would like to just throw out there that it's not possible for this business to move to the south side of the building, where there's ample staging area, both in terms of a pad and a door. That we consider the possibility of that they can have an opening perhaps on Pearl instead of Prescott. So those are my thoughts right now. I hope that we can kind of allow the applicant to regroup and with some of these ideas and move forward.
Great, Laura?
Nothing to add except for I agree with Commissioner Cook.
Yeah, I have a couple comments. I think one of the issues here is that this is a spot that had been sort of a little forgotten area that wasn't really a street and wasn't quite an alley. And you could probably have argued a few years ago that it was more of an alley at this portion than a street. But I think that argument has turned based on the fact that now you've got a lot of new development here, but even more so, the treatment on Pearl Alley is quite nice. It is truly now a sidewalk edge. And I think that the context of this site is now that it is part of a neighborhood, is no longer sort of a random industrial property that's next to some, partially vacant land. It is now really just part of a walkable fabric of the neighborhood. And I think the direction we want to head is not toward making it less walkable, but making it more like the Pearl Alley side. So if you just go down one or two or up one or two on those slides, I think to number 9, you'll get to that corner, which really shows how quite well that sidewalk has been developed on Pearl. So a couple things. One, I would say that no matter what, we need to figure out how to improve this side of the building in order for it to have some semblance of function like the Pearl side does. And I think that means there needs to be a cohesive sidewalk that goes along that. And I would argue that it's probably time to consider how a curb might function there, especially since you've got a curb up to those 2 telephone poles. And now the whole thing's been kind of blown up where the door is. So I guess what I'm proposing is I don't think there ought to be, I would say I'd prefer there's not a door on this side. However, I could see having a door on this side if we had a fully thought out sidewalk solution that incorporated whatever aspects of handicap ramping need or don't need to go. And I'm not an expert on that in alleys. It doesn't appear that one was deemed necessary on the Pearl side. So maybe one isn't necessary here. I can't tell if that thing dies into the alley because it was supposed to be handicapped accessible or just because it was a artifact of the way the grades went as this alley got repaved. Regardless, it's certainly not handicapped accessible because it looks like a giant pile of gravel and sludge. So it's definitely not achieving its goal. So I guess my point is, I think if we thought about the grades, and maybe that would require even lifting that door up a little higher, as David said, so it wasn't too low in that facade. And you could make a sidewalk that was cohesive, that went and connected to the sidewalks next door and got down to this corner and potentially had a curb. And you also relocated that drain pipe. So it was actually making some kind of sense. And it wasn't just like weirdly jutting out into the alley. And maybe that's just temporary. I don't know. It certainly looks that way. I think if all those things
Excuse me.
Hold on, give me 1 second. If all those things could happen, then I would, be able to support the door here, even though I don't think it's the ideal solution. So with that, over to you, applicant, to respond to all of our comments.
The drain pipe was a temporary issue to solve the water that came down from the street.
Okay, good.
It wasn't intended to stay there. We were just trying to divert the water from washing down in there and washing any mud
Yeah.
from the excavation that would wash onto the street.
Makes sense. Do you have any comments on the sidewalk or any other issues that we mentioned?
No, you know, I was hired just as a builder to finish the project out, which had been started. The architect drew the plans. I asked him about the grades, and he said it should be all right. I personally didn't think it was all right, but they wanted to put their pedal wagons through there.
Yeah.
And in order to put the pedal wagon through, we needed it that.
Yep. So I guess my response to just sort of the record, not to you necessarily, because I understand you just got hired to do this, is that if we can figure out a way that you can create a soft enough grade there with sort of a de facto curb cut, even though I think maybe it wouldn't necessarily be because of the way the curbs would end up being with that sidewalk, it would almost just be a flat part of that. It might be able to work, but I think we'd have to see all those grades in order to be convinced. I would have to see those grades. So that's kind of where I am. I'm feeling it probably needs to get continued. Staff, where do you think we are out ahead right now?
I do think it needs continued. I would also go back to my suggestion that we might want to approve a temporary wood kind of enclosure for that open space, just so the elements, but one of those, you know, it feeds into when it gets submitted in the final approval. So we do know that it's temporary and that, you know, this comes back within minimum or maximum of 90 days, hopefully at the next meeting, which the deadline is December 16th.
Okay. I can, does anybody have any other comments on the commission? Else I'll make that motion. Anybody comments? Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, hold on. Let me get the other details in there. I'll move to continue IV-20-12-007 with the condition that a temporary wooden what do we want to call it? Temporary wood ceiling of the opening to accommodate the elements. I don't know, how do you want to word that, Steph? I'm clumsily struggling through it.
A temporary enclosure of the open garage door.
Okay, not to exceed 90 days. Okay, and David, are you still willing to second that?
Yes. I would also like to remind you that we are an hour into our meeting and we're only on application 5, so I think we need to really move this on. And
okay, so I'll call the roll. I vote yes. David?
yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Todd. Okay, Charles, the motion is continued, so I'll work with staff to figure out how to take next steps.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, we are on number 6, which is 243 East 3rd Avenue. Over to staff.
All right, this application is to construct a single-family 2.5-story house. The proposed house would be painted brick and fiber cement vertical siding, trim, and fascias. It would use Pella Impervia windows and GAF slate line English gray shingles. House doors would be insulated fiberglass, full light entry doors, and the garage door would be a flat metal panel. Front porch would have wielded steel railings. Commissioners at the business meeting thought the design was much improved, though there needed to be a greater discussion about the garage on the alley during the hearing. I've included the October 13th minutes with all of the comments from that. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the roof height be lowered to be more in line with the surrounding 2-story homes. Basis for approval include 3116.12 standards for construction, A, C, D, H, I, J, and L. I will turn it over to you, Jason, so we can get Carrick sworn in.
Sounds good. Carrick, is there anybody else that can testify today on this application?
No.
Will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Carrick Cheryl.
You promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
I certainly do.
Okay, well, over to you.
We did the best we could to take the comments from last meeting. We simplified the south portion of the third floor and roof element. Tried to align a few of those things and eliminated the dormer that was sliding southward to create a door. Other than that, the proposal remains generally the same. We did add a dormer to the west elevation there to create a little bit more usable interior space. But other than that, it's a fairly straightforward proposal here. I am a little curious about the what amount the roof line wants to be lowered, but we can discuss that as the commissioner's comment.
Okay, we will run through the team and see where we end up. Todd.
I think that there are certain aspects of this that I really like. I like that second floor porch, kind of screened in, but it's part of the architecture. I really appreciate that. The parapet height on the back, it's a little clunky how the two kind of elements slam into each other, but I'm actually okay with it. I think my only concern, and I'm not sure how we've done this in the past, I forget how we used to set the height, but this house is pretty tall. It looks like it's probably 35 feet from finished floor, and it may sit up 2, maybe 3 feet from grade. So it gets pretty tall there. And I forget the language we used about setting the finish floor height. So that may need to come into play, but otherwise I'm okay with the application.
Brooke?
I have nothing to add. I agree with Todd on his comments. I think it's coming along nicely.
Great. David?
Based on the comment about the height of the building, what we normally used to request is a street elevation. I noticed we only have this showing one additional structure next to it. And so perhaps if you want to continue that, we should say that we will need to see the street elevation of how this plays with the other pieces.
Do you have any other comments, David?
Nope.
Okay. Ben?
I think we're coming along nicely, but I, unlike Todd, cannot get comfortable with the rectangular garage form interfering with the roof line and the dormer. So I think that the commission should request the applicant to allow the that form to defer to that roof line and lose a little bit of a parapet there. And really on the other side as well, that have an architectural solution as we look at the south elevation. And Alex, you can go down to the next sheet 22. And you can see how on the right-hand side of the sheet towards the top of that parapet that there's also a conflict between the roof line and the and this rectangular form on the back, which can be reconciled. It may not be for the interior space, but it would be much more architecturally appropriate. But I do think the one facing the alley is the most important, and it would be required to get my support for this project.
Okay, and Lauren?
I have nothing else to add.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add either. Over to you, Carrick, for some responses there.
I'm still just trying to process collision of the pitched roof and the parapet. Ben, you feel like the parapet should be lowered to the eave height so that those two shapes are not colliding. Is that correct?
Correct. And or you can just basically stop the parapet from occurring at all underneath the eave. So let the eave travel on through the exterior of the building towards the alley. That way the dormer is allowed to express itself, and it really allows the roof line to express itself as the primary element of this proposal versus the garage, which is a secondary kind of form and design expression for this project.
And the relationship of the edge of the roof and the garage opening below, the materiality, what are your thoughts about that, where the garage wants to be somewhat encompassed by the masonry? I'm just trying to figure out what your thoughts are about that, whether that would create a funny shaped masonry element.
I think it does create a funnier masonry element, but I don't think it's nearly as important as the funny shape of the roof line and the dormer that you have presently. So, and more importantly, it's just the roof line and the dormer are much more appropriate expressions for this community than that shape on the back of the building.
Okay.
Staff, what do you think we ought to do to proceed?
I think it sounds like you might need to continue this.
I would make a motion to do so.
Okay with continuance?
Sure, that's fine. So next month we'll be back in with a comparison of there's a similar home, two houses to the east, that I think would give us a baseline for the total height of the building. And then we'll resolve the parapet of the garage. Just one, can I take your temperature on lowering the masonry parapet to below the eave line all along that mass and adding a railing to do that? Does that seem like a reasonable solution?
Possibly.
Does that work?
But completely. I mean, ultimately, this is it's an architectural problem, and I think you can see. I think everybody can see the conflict, but you have to, provide the solution.
Sure. All right.
Okay, so we have a motion from David to continue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. David?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Lauren? Brooke?
Yes.
And Jason, motion is to continue. Okay, great, thanks. So now moving on to number 7, 270
All right. This is for an exterior building alteration and landscaping. On the north facade, they are requesting to remove the existing second floor window and the porch canopy and install a new single French door to fit the current window width with exterior color, door trim, and grid pattern to match the existing windows. Proposed door would lead out to a proposed covered balcony. The ceiling in both the first and second floor flat roofs would be metal to match the existing. Proposed balcony will feature a metal guardrail designed to match the existing first floor porch guardrail. The landscaping would be to extend the existing wood picket fence to meet the existing wrought iron fence in the front yard. Commissioners at the business meeting were initially okay with the front alteration, though most commissioners stated they would need some additional time to look over the drawings. Commissioners understood the fence. However, HBO staff recommends setting the fence back 1 to 2 feet from the front of the house per all fence approvals within the Columbus Historic Districts. Staff recommends the approval with the condition for that fence being brought back. Basis for recommendation are the Italian Village guidelines for fences and enclosures, 31:16.11 standards for alterations, 3, 4, and 9, and the standards for new constructions, E and G. And just as a timestamp, commissioners, it is 5:20.
Okay, so who is the applicant out there? It is, look at the wrong one.
Jesse.
Jesse. Okay, Jesse, are you out there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Will you please raise your right hand, state your name for the record?
Jesse Garner.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
I do.
Okay, over to you.
All right. I think Kim summed it up pretty well. I just wanted to add that this solution is to give the homeowner a place to sit in their front yard and enjoy the outside with them having such a small lot. And the current front porch on the first floor doesn't give them that opportunity. So we felt this was a good option and a perfect place for them to be able to have some outdoor seating and keep with the design of the house. I want to add, I submitted 2 options. One was an Anderson door and one was a Therma-Tru. And we have decided to go with the Therma-Tru door, if that's okay with the commissioners. That Therma-Tru is the brand that the current house front door and side door are. But we would still be keeping with the grid pattern and the color and everything, as I mentioned before. And in regards to the fence, the drawing on A10 or A100 shows that that fence is flush. The new fence, the privacy fence, would be flush with the front of the house, which in fact it would be 10.5 inches back. If there's a picture probably on the very last page that shows that that wrought iron fence indeed actually goes behind the facade of the house, but it only goes back 10.5 inches, not the 1 to 2 feet, as Kim mentioned. So hoping that you would consider allowing the wood fence to go there instead of having to do an extension for 1.5 inches or whatever would be needed for that. And that's all I have.
Okay, I'll go around the commissioners. Ben, you want to start?
I support staff on the fence stuff. I am supportive of the idea of this porch and the steel fenestration and so forth. But I have one problem perhaps, or question. It has to do with the metal, quote unquote, metal fascia. And if it's brake metal, thin sheet metal on top of plywood, we may have a problem. But it could be resolved by using some other thicker metal or an Aluka bond or something like that that doesn't oil can.
I believe that we are just planning on using a wrapped metal, such as being used right now on the front porch covered piece. But if it is preferable to use something else, we're open to that. I believe like I mentioned, I believe that the existing is just a wrapped metal, aluminum, brake metal piece. Yes.
Heavier gauge is going to solve the problem.
Okay.
Okay, great. And then, Jesse, if you don't mind, we'll just get through all our comments and then we'll let you kind of respond to whatever comes up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, just keep it quick. Okay, Lauren?
Nothing to add.
I'm opposed to the wood fence. In other words, I'm supportive of staff's recommendation of not letting the picket fence come out in the front of it. It just material-wise doesn't seem like it really belongs to this house.
Brooke?
I agree with the comments that David and Ben have made so far. Thanks.
Todd?
Yeah, I'm in support. I was a little hesitant when I first looked at it, but I think it's a fine solution, so I'm in support.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really have any other comments to add. Let's see. Just look at this real quickly. Yeah, I think that, the issue with the fence is just kind of the location based on the materials, as David had said. So there could be a different solution. I just don't think that's necessarily it. Okay, so over to you, Jesse, for any other clarifications or questions or comments you have for us.
Just the one question, if we were to extend that wrought iron fence back, is it the 1 or is it 2 feet behind the front of the house? Would we be able to continue that wood privacy fence with no problem?
Staff, can you answer that?
So since there's a window there, I would require it to be back a little bit behind the window. I'm not sure if you can, how you'd reconcile the part that's going into the house. Would that just be moving that wood gate that's at the back up to that portion, or would that be keeping the wrought iron fence where it is?
So it would probably have to be the wrought iron fence, because right now there is a concrete pad, or not a concrete pad, excuse me, a grill cover to an egress window down below that window. So we wouldn't be able to have a gate right there. The gate would need to be further back.
Okay. Because my initial thought was if you just took that existing piece and swung it back and had the wood there, but
Gotcha.
No. But if I were staff approving a fence, I'd still say that wood fence would need to be back behind that first window. And if we need to adjust kind of where it is, so it's, a little bit more than 2 feet, that could also be something.
Staff, is that something that could be a staff recommendation, or how would you like us to proceed?
That could be a staff approval. Yeah. Or if one of the commissioners wanted to take a look at it too, I'd be okay with that. But I can go back and forth with our applicant if need be on figuring out where exactly that fence needs to end up and what solution needs to happen.
And then what about Ben's concerns on the metal portions? Is that something you'd be comfortable reviewing, or do we need to bring that back in?
I could review that.
You could review it, you said?
Yes.
Okay, great. So is anyone willing to make a motion with those caveats for staff review?
It seems like we're in favor of the porch front elevation changes as long as the break metal is of a more significant substance, and that we would separate the fence issue to be a staff approval once the applicant has provided drawings that show what their alternative is. So I'd be willing to make a motion, A, approving the front porch with staff reviewing and approving the final break metal solution. And then B would be the fence, which staff would be looking at and not require the applicant to come back before the commission.
Okay, so for A, do I have a second on the issues that don't involve the fence? Okay, sounds good. Let me call the roll on that one. David?
Aye.
Lauren?
Aye.
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
I vote yes. And then do I have a second on David's motion regarding the fence?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. David?
Approved. Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Okay, so that one carries as far as, I guess that's it, right? We're all good, staff? Okay, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. And
Thanks for your time.
Yep, we're gonna move on to number 883 North 4th Street. And I have to abstain from this one. So I'm gonna mute myself and turn it over to staff and then Todd.
Alrighty, I just want to note that Commissioner Fergus has officially joined us. And then I do want to check just for note taking. Commissioner Cook, are you also abstaining from this one?
I am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had all of my ducks in a row before I
And
did
you
that.
need me to cut out?
Just go ahead and mute yourself. I think that's typically what Jason does, but you can stay on camera and you can stay seated. You just can't comment during this. So without further ado, I'll roll into the proposed work for this. This is to install a 16-foot wide by 40-inch high sign on the face of the building. The wall sign would be lit by 4 gooseneck lights. Wall sign would also be painted aluminum backer plate with 2-inch HDU painted letters. The ground sign would be placed 1 foot back from the right-of-way. Proposed sign would have a triangular footprint. The ground sign would have a 3-inch aluminum tube accent painted orange with a 6-inch white aluminum FCO letters. The background would be a preferred aluminum painted a dark gray. The sign would also have future consideration for solar LED ground fixture for vertical illumination. Commissioners at the business meeting had some mixed feedback on the sign. Some preferred the sign as it was on the face of the building. Others thought it needed to be smaller, and there was a suggestion to make the signage more artistic, using that proposed orange bar as lighting down on the letters and making it a little bit more vintage, essentially getting the sign to where it's that artistic vintage looking sign. There was mixed opinions about the appropriateness of the monument ground sign. Concern was raised about the placement of the sign on the facade. Some commissioners thought the placement looked a little arbitrary. Signage at 994 North 4th, the Drunch with the Rhino is located roughly the same distance back, which is approximately 85 feet. The area's signs were subjected to the short north sign guideline. Even though this road is in the short north, signage has consistently been reviewed following those guidelines, and it would be an anomaly to not review this property with the same guidelines. Of course, exceptions to the 25 square foot wall sign have been allowed due to those signs being artistic and funky. HPO staff does not support this application. Staff recommends the approval of the application with the following conditions. The wall sign placement at the westmost corner is revisited as the sign is evocative of the newspaper heading. Perhaps a more central placement would be warranted. Per the short north design guidelines, the wall sign square footage should be reduced to the 25 square feet. The ground sign be removed as part of the application per the guidelines and code. Basis for recommendation noted below. So the short north design guidelines, which are the general guidelines, and the ground sign guidelines.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. Let's see. John, I think I see you there. If you don't mind, I'm just going to swear you in real quick. If you don't mind raising your right hand and stating your name for the record.
John Blakely.
And do you swear to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
I do.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add to Kimberly's kind of synopsis?
I think she did a pretty good job, like, painting the picture from what we've talked about. I do just want to stress that because of the building's distance from the road, the building directly to the south of us has other retail, so we're not able to put any sign on 4th Street there. The building to the north of us is not ours. So where we've located that ground sign is kind of the only way for a car driving by to be able to see our business. I would also point out that the ground sign that we had, we presented months before the current monoliths have been appearing all over the country. So I'd like to, take some credit for that. And that's about it.
All right.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Then we'll just go around here. The commission, Let me see. David and Jason are abstaining. Brooke, do you want to start us off?
I think that my comments from the business meeting still hold. I like the change in the sign that's on the building now that is on the face of the building rather than high. And I am probably the only one who doesn't have a problem with the other side, the other sign.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Perfect. Lauren, any thoughts?
Has the monolith sign changed since last time, or is it? I guess I'm going against the rules. I'm asking the applicant the question.
It hasn't changed since the business meeting, but it did change a little since the review meeting last month. We changed it to have like a mesh facade to try to make it more artistic, and I think the placement of the bar changed a little, the orange bar, but it's more or less still that same triangular monolith on 4th.
I mean, I do like, for the sake of the neighborhood, that the sign's been moved down to the brick. I think we'll have issues with mounting it into the brick or mortar, I guess, and not the face. I'm underwhelmed by the monolith, honestly. If we're trying to make it an art piece, it's not. I'd like to see more, if that's an option, but that's all I have to add.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ben, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I think that the sign on the building can be a success. I would be supportive of things that were even more artistic or vintage, but this is fine. The external illumination does help that vintage aspect, and so that's a good thing. I think the freestanding element out by the curb is handsome, and it's well designed. I definitely appreciate the perf metal as part of it, but I just think that there are other better things that could be done out here. Maybe the typography is emerging from the ground, something, instead of just it being just a monument of sorts, a pylon. So, and maybe there are some ways to get the bar, the orange bar and the typography to work into the landscape instead of being vertical. So I'm not going to support mine, only because I think the applicant and we can do better. So I'd say let's just defer this and get the other one up, and then maybe the applicant can circle back around with something a little more interesting and artistic for the curbside sign.
Perfect. Shannon.
Sorry about that. I agree with Ben on this. I hope that the applicant comes back with something for it. I think it will be a cool intervention if we can get something more artistic for that sign. I'm definitely a supporter of it, but agree that we should probably just focus on the first one as long as it's centered over the windows.
All right, thank you. And then my quick comments is I like the change to the building, or to the sign on the building, and I think I would be okay with keeping it the size that it is, due to the fact that it sits back so far from the street, letting them have a little bit larger of a sign. And then I agree with the way Ben put the monolith sign, that if I was willing to approve a monument type sign like that, it would have to be much more artistic in its approach before I would be willing to approve something like that. So I'm just kind of following in line with what Shannon and Ben said. So with that, John, any thoughts based on the comments you heard, or any response?
Yeah, just so I'm also speaking with my sign person, and there for the monument or the monolith sign. He's saying there really is no other room for a different kind of orientation or anything without impeding the right of way, because we can't go out and we can't go back because cars are going to be parking there. So it kind of does have to be something that's kind of straight up and down. Does anyone have any ideas on, what might be viewed as more artistic in that, very limited area there? And again, we can't use the building on either side of us, so that's, it's kind of just that.
Right. Does anybody want to give any feedback there?
Well, I'll just add that typography emerging from the ground, such as you can look up the image of Chartres, France, town square, and it set of letter forms that are set on the on grade. And there are a lot of different examples of that kind of thing. That the one I'm just mentioning is overscaled for this situation, but it's just that if you can think about that and its materiality as being thing that is drawn from the narrative of the historic village, or this village, it would certainly help. And so I would start with those two thoughts. I think that there are ways to squeeze something into that little triangle with the triangle view.
Is my graphics person allowed to speak? He's in the meeting. Scott McPhee. He's
sure, if he wants to. I just have to swear him in. Scott, are you on there?
Scott McAfee, he's at the bottom.
Okay, sorry. All right, Scott, if you state your name for the record, and then do you swear to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
Scott McAfee, I do.
All right, go ahead if you have anything to add.
So the location of that sign is actually, there was a reduced clear vision triangle for that property to 5 foot. So that, from the original submission that we did a couple months back, it was a different shape. And realizing that there was a clear vision issue, they reduced the property clear vision to 5 foot. So that's why it's triangular. So that triangular shape is kind of needed in order to be clear of that 5 foot clear vision. And it's hard to see from the pictures, but that area tapers off to nothing to the end of the sidewalk. So there's really not any other area to work with there, especially going vertically and possibly back towards the property because of cars being parked in that first parking spot there. So the design of it was, for the most part, meant to kind of be in compliance first and trying to fit their brand into a set fixed shape and height. So again, John had mentioned being able to possibly get some feedback on what you feel we could do there, because we've exhausted pretty much everything that we can think of to fit in that small area. As far as making it artistic or something of that nature, I really haven't discussed this with John to try to shy outside of his brand look. I believe that that's important to him, especially for what it means and what it represents, and the concept there. So we felt that the triangular shape met compliance with the clear vision triangle, and still represented his brand well. As far as the arbitrary location for the wall sign, as far as going left or right, obviously we can discuss, but I believe that center area is really the best location for that, as you see, because of the transition that goes towards the door, the garage door there. And I believe even if we centered it on the building, we are going to be impeding that that garage door area and some of that sign, even if we did reduce the size, which I hope we don't have to, because 25 square foot is, by the way the city calculates, is very small because we have that hanging Y. So, you know, reducing that size to 25 square foot and centering it on the building, I believe would probably be a little bit even more or less desirable as far as, you know, the visual aesthetics of the building, especially the fact that there's a tree there. And that tree is young, and I'm sure it's probably going to get a little bit bigger over time.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Kimberly, it sounds like, would your suggestion be to maybe break this up into two? So we do the building sign versus the monolith sign?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. So, John, I guess I need your approval to do that, but I think based on the comments that we've heard, it looks like we have some support of your building sign, and then, we could just approve that, and so you can get going with that. But that we probably need, even though Scott described, you've kind of gone through a lot of exhaustive measures for the monolith, that we probably need to kind of table this until you guys maybe come up with a different solution, just because this one hasn't quite, I'm just one vote, but I'm not sure that this would pass as it's currently shown. So, you're muted, John.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Would it be possible to conceptually approve the monolith and then agree, to find something that is artistic, but at least so we don't have to keep going round and round whether having something there is okay? Because it seems like most people are in support of something. It might not be, this specific rendition, but could we do that? Is that an option?
Well, I'd have to ask one of the commissioners to make that motion, but usually we don't allow conceptually, unless, especially in something like this, where we probably need to see be a little bit closer to a final version than we are right now to kind of do that. But let me put that, we'll see if a commissioner wants to make that motion.
Thank you.
All right. So why don't we do the building as just part A, Kimberly, does that work? Okay. So if somebody's interested in making a motion for the building sign.
Ben, you're muted.
Hey, I was doing really well until then. I move on 12-A, which is the building mounted sign, to approve as submitted here tonight.
All right. All right. Thank you, Lauren. Okay, I'll just do roll. Ben?
Aye. Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So that motion carries.
All right,
And
hold on.
on-
Since this is outside the guidelines, so I just need reasons for approval. So I don't have to pick your brains too much. Todd, you had mentioned that because it's so far back. Do we want to add anything else to the reasons why that's approved outside the guidelines?
I'm going to add that we felt that the design aesthetic hinted at a vintage quality of sign that we might see in Columbus, and the applicant presented that narrative to support that.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I move on Part B of 12-011, the freestanding monument sign at the curb cut to continue.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Do roll. So Ben,
Aye.
Shannon,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So that so the monolith will just continue to next month. So does that make sense, John?
Yeah, that sounds great, and thank you guys for working with us. And is there a way for me to like bounce feedback in between like now and then off to know that we're on the right track? Like, you know, is there like a lead person here I could like email directly, or is that against the rules? Or
The person you should email is just Kimberly, and if she can distribute it, she'll tell us how to do that officially.
Yeah, so
but-
you can bounce off of me. I mean, bear in mind, HBO staff doesn't support it, but I will give you my best kind of guidance because I also do try to reflect, you know, the opinions of the commissioners as well. So the deadline for the next meeting is Wednesday, December 16th. There's an extra week this month, so everybody gets an extra day that's here. So yeah, just email me at the ibc@columbus.gov.
okay, thank you guys.
Thanks, John. Okay, Jason.
Okay. Back to the. All right, next one is, it looks like we're on the conceptual reviews, correct, staff?
Correct.
Okay, so we are on to number 9, 829.
All right, this is IV-20-12-012829 Hamlet Street. We're conceptually reviewing the construction of a new one-story solarium addition and roof overlay to a historic existing one-story home. The addition will match the existing home's roof pitch, eaves, fascias, gutters, downspouts, shingle, siding, ridge vent, and paint colors. The proposed addition would include 4 skylights measuring 15 by 15 feet. The commissioners at the business meeting thought that the
15 feet.
Do I have that wrong?
Yes.
So 15 inches, right?
Yeah, it's inches.
Yeah, thank you for catching my typo. They happen. All right, commissioners at the business meeting thought that the addition was appropriate in the rear. Detailed drawings were requested for the skylights, as some commissioners had concerned about how the domed lights would be. Revised documents were submitted. They've been added to the end of the materials. Again, I've kept the originals in case we needed to compare. HPO staff would recommend that the siding and materials and roof height not be matched exactly, as this is a new addition to a historic home. Commissioners should offer design feedback to be utilized at a future hearing. Basis for staff recommendation is the City Code 3116.11, standards for alteration 4, 9, and 10. And I will hand that back to you, Jason, to get our applicant sworn in.
Get some serious feedback. Somebody, I think somebody has a booth going on. Yeah. Nope, still going on. If somebody has a phone and a computer going at the same time, you'll have to mute one of those. Okay, let's try it. So, who do we have out there? Is Dwayne there?
No, Robert Harris.
Oh, okay, Rob. Can you turn your camera on? There we go.
Let me see.
Is everybody seeing Rob's camera, or is it?
Yes, I hit.
I can see him.
You can?
Yep.
Well, good enough then. Rob, will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Robert Harris.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony this evening to the best of your ability.
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Over to you then.
Okay. Real quick here, this is a very compassionate addition. It's a solarium. It's 15 by 15 foot square, totally in the rear of the home, not visible by any aspect from the street. In regards to this, we were matching pretty much the whole thing. The first page of our slide shows in regards to a historic west gable square window. That's part of the original historic character, and that's one of the reasons why we were going to carry it over to the Solarium to pay homage to that. On that, the second page, also the lot coverage, we're 73% undeveloped on the site, so it's very compassionate. And the owner, Dwayne Young, wants to keep it that way. He likes gardening and he wants the whole thing gardened, so he's not interested in some giant addition or anything like that. The second page shows all the architecture as is. The house originally was a simple rectangle. Then it looks like sometime in history I could not find out. Somebody put a flat roof shed on it. And then in 2008, Dwayne came before the commission and had the porch put on by Urban Order. If you go to the third page, it shows how it's square on all sides. It shows all the windows onto it. Again, it shows the square window to match existing into the gable. The skylights, they're, let me see. The skylights are 22 by 46, which means they're 2'2" by 4'6". And then there's a picture of the skylight, and then it also shows the historic resemblance to the square window and the gable. And then after you get past that page, which is a section crosscut, keep on going. A little more. Okay, there it is showing the dimensions, and then the homage to the square window, the skylights, and then the next page is sections showing the curb height and everything. The curb height looks tall because it's a cross section of just a couple inches in width onto it. And then I have circled in a red box the size of the windows, skylights again, being 2'2" by 4'6", so they'd stay compassionate and small to the building. And then if you go past this, it has the weatherside profile fiber cement siding that mimics the existing home. And then after that shows the windows, which are pre-approved by the commission, by the HPO as Pella and Pervia onto it. And then the last page shows the shingles that are on the house now, which are from the approved list. And I put in dashed in red that shows which shingle that is on the approved shingle list. So any questions?
Okay, let's go around and we'll see what everybody thinks. Lauren, do you want to start?
Yes, I have no issue with the design. I guess I have one question, and that's for the commission or for Kimberly, if you might have an answer. If we allow operable skylights, is that my only question to pose?
Staff, do you have an answer for that one?
I do not have an answer for that one. I'm not familiar with it, with the operable skylights. We haven't had too many. And I just wanted to comment, David, it looks like you're online twice.
Is it just me, or is everybody else getting an echoey loop?
Everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Rob, I'm not sure if that's you.
Should I put mute on my button?
Yeah, try mute yours.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Back to you, Kimberly.
All right. So.
Okay. Something went horribly awry within the last, as soon as I got back on.
Yeah, sorry, Jason. I'm gonna punch in here. Yeah, David, as Kimberly said, there are two of you apparently, and two streaming videos. So I think there was some feedback coming from one of your ends there, David. That's where it was coming from. And he's muted now.
What can I do?
Question.
Maybe if he signs back in.
Yeah, that would probably be the best thing, is to sign out and sign back in. and see which one of those pops off there.
Okay, due to time and everything else, I'm going to say I'm totally in favor of the project. I have nothing else to say. So then I'll leave you guys and try to come back.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. There we go. That seems to have gotten it. Okay, so Lauren, do you have comments?
No, other than that, I think it's great.
Ben?
I support the project, and I applaud Rob for a great presentation.
Brooke?
I'm very much in favor of this project and support it, and echo Ben's comment about the nice presentation. Very, very thoughtful and well presented. Thank you.
Todd?
No comments. Total support of the project.
Yep. Okay, same here. And then David already expressed that before he dropped off. So is anyone willing to make a motion?
I think this
This is conceptual.
Oh, it's conceptual. Sorry about that.
And why it's conceptual is we're going to have a contractor look at it, price it, to make sure it's in the applicant's price point. And then we'll have full working drawings done and then submit when those are finished.
Okay, sounds great. Well,
And
in
thank
that case,
you.
we look forward to seeing the final.
Thank you all.
All right, good. Okay. Moving on. We are on to number 10, 4244 East Prescott.
Yeah, second to last application. This is the conceptual review to build three 2.5 story townhouses on the parcel with the existing duplex. Proposed townhouses would measure approximately 66 feet wide total and 44 feet deep. The proposed townhouses would also be stepped back from the alley. The west elevation would have a front stoop facing the alley. East elevation would include a 2-car garage and a second and third story balcony. Commissioners at the business meeting thought that more detail was needed on the front of the townhomes for them to feel more appropriate within the neighborhood. There was concern about the porches on the rear, but commissioners did appreciate the setup for the rear access, especially if that neighboring parcel was developed as well. Staff recommends commissioners provide feedback to be used at a future hearing. Basis for their recommendation is City Code 3116.12, standards for new construction, A, C, E, and G.
Okay, great. Carrick, is there anybody else besides you who's going to comment on this one?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, you are already sworn in, so you can begin your testimony whenever you wish.
As you can see, this is a fairly significantly scaled back project. The parcels under control, varied back and forth, but this is what we currently have right now. So we needed to move forward with what was under control. Building from where we were previously, this proposal is simplified in its style and in its architecture. I feel like the separation between the existing duplex at the corner and the new building helps to justify the height difference. Notably, that existing duplex is a fairly squatty building. In addition to the fact that it's I don't know for sure if it's a slab on grade building, but when you walk up to it, the door sills are right 8 inches off the grade there. So, I think that I'll just take your comments. Obviously, this is kind of our first pass at this solution. Additional detail would obviously be provided for the front porches. There was a comment about the balconies in the back. I guess I would like to understand that a little bit more. And then maybe provide some commentary on variation between the different townhomes on the west elevation with regard to materiality, if trying to keep it all similar is better, or some minor variation to identify the separate townhomes doesn't make it too cluttered. I think that's all I have.
Okay. I will go through everybody and see where we stand. Ben, you want to start?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think this proposal is an improvement over what we've seen before, but it's just hard, and I'm willing to allow a little more mass here than the duplex or the multifamily next to it. But it's just that the street kind of tells us it wants to be more rhythmic or smaller scale, and I know that there were some comments about this. Pearl Street facing elevation feels, each home feels like it's too wide. And maybe we need some notches out of this. If you imagine a more traditional Italianate home where it's kind of in plan, it has kind of a T shape that would, in this case, allow a little bit of a front yard adjacent to the porch and perhaps a little bit of a pocket of a backyard in the back, and narrow the forward-most elevation. So in other words, you'd be giving up some program square footage. At least, we could maybe still give you the height or something like that. So I'm just looking for something that feels a little more like it belongs on the street, and like it's drawn from the stock of the community, and perhaps getting a little more green space. Certainly, even if this goes forward, the porch needs some work to make it feel like it belongs. That's all I got.
Okay, Lauren?
I have nothing to add to Commissioner Goodwin's comments.
David?
I wish we could, in a way, go back to the project where we were looking at where they punched the door in the concrete building where the beer cart thing is supposed to be stored. But right there on Prescott, you see these townhomes that are very close to each other, but each one has a signature look or a slight variation. And I feel that this being right around the corner, there does need to be more variation of the facade. If you hold just a minute and look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the buildings that I'm talking about. If you point to the blue double that starts this project and look at just the other side of it across Prescott, you see these fronts, and their porches are very close together, but they're all slight variations. And I think that's what's wrong with the project right at the moment. It looks too much like a project, not like 3 townhomes. I think that inspiration should be drawn from the neighborhood, and that's one of the guidelines in preservation work, and adding new things that are appropriate. So I wish we could see where 3 of the facades aren't identical.
Todd?
And given that it's after 6 o'clock, I just want to keep the comments short on that.
Yep. Todd?
Yeah, I like Ben's idea and I like David's idea. I think the porches obviously need a little work, and maybe some more, not definition isn't the right word, but some expression at the front door versus just kind of maybe some satellites, some transom, something to give just the door itself a little bit more street presence. Other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Okay, and Brooke?
Hi, sorry.
Love you, Brooke.
I have struggled with this project. I think earlier I have made comments about the busyness of it, and it still feels that way. It feels busy, yet it feels monotonous. And I think maybe David hit it on the head, and that is that each of these units should be have their own character, some definition to it. So I think it's coming along, but yeah, there still is a lot of work that needs to be done.
And from my perspective, I think the site plan works well. I know you're not sure what's going to happen with those other properties, so I think this is a smart way to handle it. It kind of limits it to one curb cut for the existing duplex and these new units. Also sets up the possibility if the project expands, you can connect in the rear. So I think it's a good way to handle it. The actual overall, like the overall mass, as far as the height of it, I think even though it's significantly bigger than the duplex, it's not bigger than the Prescott Place right across the street. So I get that, but I also understand all the comments the commissioners made with regard to the architectural style and sort of that wideness feel for each of those individual units, and if there's a way to facilitate a different feel. So that's all I have. So with that, back to you, Carrick, for any additional questions or comments.
Yeah, I'm I'm really struggling with this, just the juxtaposition of it's busy and monotonous at the same time has really been the definition of this project for me the whole time. I go back to, we've presented this project a number of times and at various scales, and it's when we've broken the mass down to have more narrow elements, we get the comment that it's too tall. When we have fewer elements and they're wider, then they're too wide. I'm struggling. I mean, I understand this isn't a design charrette, but boy, any additional help you might be able to provide in that would be certainly helpful. I mean, I understand the comments about the Italianate homes across Prescott, and I can look at that. I certainly get concerned about again the comment of busy and monotonous at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things, kind of distilling what everybody's been saying, and they can correct me obviously if I'm misstating it, it almost feels like it's a traditional approach, but then with proportions that aren't quite meeting that, because you got a little extra width, and then compounding that with the sameness. I think that it's just not quite capturing it. And I'm not saying that you need to go totally away from traditional, but maybe, I don't know, playing with that form in some way so that it doesn't look like just sort of a typical Italian village house that's just kind of made itself wider and then done 3 in a row. I don't know how else to say it, really.
One other inspiration for you that might be relevant is Drive Mount Pleasant. It's interesting. Those are all very similar floor plans, but by slight changes in materials and changes of a few windows, each house looks individual. And I think it's a good example of maybe what might be done to these.
And are wider, but they have usually porches that are either centered or across the whole front facade, so it changes the proportionality.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
We appreciate
Thank you.
And moving on to the last application on the agenda, and I need to abstain from that, so I will ask staff if we have any other business that will take place following that application.
Just a couple reminders. I can go over them right now if commissioners don't have
if it's
any
brief.
objection.
Sure.
All right, just a reminder, email me back if you're going to be at hearings, please. It helps me know if we're going to have a quorum or not, and if anybody has to come or go, it helps them as well. So just, I know you guys don't like or probably don't like all of the pestering I do right before the hearings with all of the updated stuff, but just send me a, hey, yes, I'll be there. All I ask, please. And then the Italian Commission's 2021 calendar, I will send that to you guys probably first thing tomorrow. It has been done. I am struggling with the website getting it updated. And no, Alex, that's not just because you kept one of the portions out for a couple months, but just so you guys know, it's done. I'm trying to get everything updated. Technology isn't cooperating with me. So that's all I have. And then.
Okay, well, with that, then I'm going to drop off because I have to abstain from this last application. So thanks everybody for a good meeting.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Do we have a quorum any longer?
Yes, yeah, because we've got Brooke, David, Todd,
Yep.
Ben, Lauren, and Shannon are still here. So
Okay.
we're good to go. And I'll roll along with the project description for our last one.
Perfect.
This is the conceptual review. The intent of the architecture is to break the mass into two building types and styles. The first building stands 5 stories above parking, and its design would lean more towards the site's manufacturing use. The second building is a 3.5-story building with a garden level of units. That design is intended to be more modern in its design nature. It is separated from the large building with an external access walkways up to the mass. The site plan as proposed is indicative of the land mass that the owner is in control of. The applicant is also currently showing the landscaping as schematic. The organization of the current land mass is a result of the land that the applicant controls and is dictating north-south street design. Land parcels and projects have been set up for the possibility of future phases for 4th Avenue, Detroit, and 3rd to pass into the site. Additionally, the site plan shows access to the garages under the building as well as the refuse and utilities access. The existing manufacturing building will remain in service at this time. Commissioners at the business meeting were appreciative that their comments had been followed from the previous meeting. It was asked why the design did not stay grid-like throughout the entirety. The warehouse felt repetitive, would like to see a little bit more of an artistic interpretation. The brick on the corners of the buildings was said to look institutional, not industrial. The stairwells separating the areas were commended, but commissioners wonders if those could be articulated or a little bit more artistic. Commissioners encouraged the applicant to explain the connection through a narrative. Staff recommends that feedback be given so that the applicant can use it at a future meeting. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 311612. Staff encourage new construction A through D. So I don't waste time. I will turn that back over to you, Todd, so we can get our applicant sworn in.
Okay. Thanks, Kimberly. Matt and Dan, you guys are kind of the only folks left on my screen. So are both you guys going to talk tonight?
I think we will, yeah.
Okay, so then let's just do that. If you will raise your right hand and just go one by one and state your name for the record.
Matt Kimberly.
All right, do you guys swear to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
Sure do. Yes.
Perfect. All right, then take it away. You got any additional comments?
No, and thank you very much for looking at this again, as I believe we're getting closer and closer to getting onto what we hope will be a future agenda for a vote on the Site 1 process. As you know, we've kind of been going back and forth between Site 1 and Site 2, so we're seeing a lot of each other recently. With this, just to clarify a couple of things that we heard from the business meeting, I'll hand it over to Dan, but in regards to the site, what you're seeing today is a depiction of the amount of property that we own and control. We are in conversations with the developer to the south, as well as with the owner of the manufacturing group there, the Clark Gray Vault. And the intent is to finalize and make sure that that line between all the properties and the access is done soon. This is pretty close, but I think it takes the next step in depicting to you guys after some questions as to why some of the streets are positioned the way they are, and so on and so forth. So again, we can only control what we do, in fact, control. So with that, we did a lot of listening and have tried to break up the building mass, as well as to sort of delineate what could have been an old industrial warehouse with a new vibrant living, more condo architectural associated with this. And we have included on the next page, as it scrolls up, just an image of what was here in one large, massive lot at the end of the day. So my eye, of course, goes right to the coal, especially having read all of our environmental status. So with that, if you'd like to talk about the architecture, Dan, I think we'll open it up for questions and comments after that.
Great. Yeah, I'll try to be brief. I know we're trying to time. Just quickly on this image before we go off, but the one thing that Matt sort of alluded to on that historic context was sort of the overall scale of the buildings that are on this site now, and sort of the road grid didn't sort of ever exist in this area. So, you know, as we're looking at sort of the site and site context, as much as we can for the area we control, we're trying to reintroduce that grid. So if we maybe now go to the next site plan, we can start looking at just sort of the site one plan as well too. So, you know, we listened to you very closely. The building that was now going to be on the right of our page is what we're calling the warehouse building. The building on the left of the page is we're calling the townhouse building. And so the larger warehouse building is, we've listened to sort of the original comments that were given about sort of the looking at sort of the long industrial buildings that were existence there. And actually even, you know, Camden Yard was read as an example of one of the buildings that we could look at. And so if we start, let's just, the other thing before I jump off this piece is we've divided up the two masses, and we're trying to find ways as we get land properties under control and introducing sort of alleyways back into the building too. So we split the two buildings. The tan area that's in the center of this diagram will actually be a really nicely appointed interior courtyard that sort of the alleyway will be tying into. So go to the next page, please. I'll start just talking architectural character here. So this first one is the townhouse buildings that we have on the corner. We've eliminated sort of the more collegiate style through there. Started looking at a little bit of just sort of defining the corner through there, and then using that white brick and gray townhouse motif as we move down through there. And we have slight variations as we're moving down there, so we're not completely repetitive in those pieces as well too. The other thing that we've added is that we have a garden unit that's happening on this facade. So we're half level up, half level down. Let's just keep moving through the images there. So here we can sort of see that alleyway that sort of breaks the two buildings, the warehouse building that's on the left of the page, the townhouse building on the right of the page. Just next slide, please. Now we can kind of see, you know, as we're going down Grant Street, making sure that we can get parking, trees, series of landscaping, and then that garden unit up and down through there. White brick, white painted brick as we have up above, and then the top level units will have an exterior terrace as well. Okay, next page. You know, this right here is the one of the entry points. This actually is an internal entry point, but it goes through and it would also tie into the courtyard that's beyond. And it's sort of using that to break up the masses as well too on this building. One of the garage entrances, you can see that truck, he must be bridged because he's on the wrong side of the road, going through there and heading down into one of the garage entry points on this building. Let's keep moving, please. just so that we can all get comments. And this is just a further view as we're walking down Town Street. Here is the amenity building, and there is a gap. So this is sort of the same building that we had shown prior that I think was fairly well received. You know, both this building and those townhouses were trying to pick up on kind of a brick industrial character that could have been there in the past. And then we're getting to that corner of the townhouse. So I think if we get to the next slide as well, too, we can start looking at that warehouse building that's on the corner, right? So, you know, this is that gap, and you get a hint of the nicely pointed landscape that's happening up and through there. And sort of the thought with the, we did hear sort of at the business meeting, the notion of brick about it sort of being not industrial enough. I'm not sure. I would, if we were asked to look at sort of Camden Yard, you know, sort of warehouses as an example, you know, I think that those kind of relate to that. So maybe if I can get some comments on sort of the differentiations and thoughts between those. Let's go to the next one. And then as we're looking down this would be the railroad side, right? We're trying to, as much as we can, we'd like, and sort of tying into the long industrial building that we have, that we will hopefully will remain and maybe even get converted further down the road, but just sort of having that long linear expression of that building through there that we're breaking down with what we think is sort of appropriate sort of window sizes and mass that both relate to an industrial piece and also enough of residential and scale. I'm not sure if there's much more left to kind of cover on this. I prefer to actually hear comments back versus those sort of the slides are there. And this is just sort of the corner of Fifth as well that's happening through there. So this is Fifth and the railroad side. All right. I prefer to turn it back over and get comments.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Then let's just jump right in. Brooke, do you mind starting us off?
No, I don't mind. I think this is coming along really very nicely, and I appreciate the changes you've made based on the comments that many of us have made. For me personally, it still feels a little collegiate, and the scale is you know, a little off-putting to me, but I think I would preface to say that those are personal, just, you know, my personal comments. But I do think, like it was that facade, this facade, but there are other parts of the project that I think are really quite nice. I did have one question about the stairs that look like they're going up between the two buildings, and where those are going specifically.
Which stairs? These here? Yeah, so these stairs are sort of what we hope will be a continuation of an alley system as we get further along. That is going up to an appointed courtyard that will be really nicely landscaped and part of a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
So we're breaking up those masses.
Right. So I assume that there will be some way for physically challenged people to get up there without having to do the stairs.
Sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's all.
All right, perfect. Shannon, any thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are kind of along with Brooks. I'm very happy with the townhouse building. I think that has moved in a great direction. I'm still the massing of the warehouse building. I think we were looking at, I'm trying to figure out what page I was thinking of. Yes, that's right there. I still think that the corners, I don't think it's the brick that is collegiate or institutional. I think it's the way the brick is expressed. I think it's getting closer, but it still definitely looks than the warehouse to me. Kind of just a little bit more institutional. Probably some type of expression at the top might change that, or getting entirely sure. But as you go along the warehouse side, I completely understand where you're going with kind of trying to continue that expression. However, I just would like to see some thought given into different colors, or just something to break it up, even if it's not, even if that mass stays the same. If there's just something to do to break the monotony. I think you're in an area where you can get away with being a little bit more creative. So you might want to try to take advantage of that. I think that those are my only comments.
Okay, perfect. David.
Let's go back to page 12 just a minute. And maybe this isn't what Shannon means, but as I look at these three black elements in the center, would there be an opportunity to change the middle one to some other material, push it back a little bit, pull it out a little bit, just to stop that whole long mass of black on that side? And then I know that this is farther down than conceptual design, but I've noticed there's no indication of any sort of lighting, either street lighting or really working to illuminate the corners of these buildings, things that might be in the ground and wash up onto the brick, and be gates or be really key import at night, parts getting in off of Fifth Avenue and Grant, from the Grant side. It seems like that ought to be taken into consideration. I think it's one of the shortcomings, I'll say this, of Jeffrey, is the night lighting is not very interesting at all. It's not a comfortable, sometimes, place. It's so repetitious. So would you take into consideration, because you're doing so many other nice features, how these buildings are lit, hopefully differently, maybe more industrial in nature, so that they signal back to the original structures that were on this property that you've talked about as a design feature? I'd just like to see that be considered as we move forward with this project.
Perfect. Lauren.
Yeah, so I see where on the side it's a little bit more simple. I'm actually like not against that because it's by the rail. So I understand why that is that way. I agree with what Commissioner Cook said, the Fifth Avenue version of that, though. I think where the townhome portion is succeeding more is that it feels a little bit more pedestrian friendly with those porches, and this side seems very cold walking past it, and more collegiate, as previous commissioners have stated. I'm more curious with how the center space is going to be developed, honestly, and just kind of seeing what you're going to put in there, and what kind of green spaces you're going to introduce into the center courtyard area.
Thanks, Lauren. Ben.
Yeah, I think if we just go back to the top, I'll start up there. And I just want to commend you for including any historical photo and attempting a narrative that aligns your project with the fabric of what was there before. I don't agree with all the things that you've said about grid, and I'll talk about the plan in a bit, but I want to provide a contrasting view of the architecture, generally speaking, in that I think that what you've shown today is a much better representation architecturally in terms of the sort of bigger muscular pieces and the brick and those little peaked roofs on the parapets. You don't have to go down yet. I'll get there. Is a much better expression of the sort of turn-of-the-century brutalist industrialism that is appropriate for this particular edge, industrial edge of the community. So I think you've done the right thing. But if you could scroll down to the next page, we'll talk about the plan. I was, in some ways, a little disappointed to see this E1 kind of footprint versus just an 11 or just, mimicking the strips that you would see in that previous photograph along the railroad. But because we don't see courtyard and because the courtyard, I think, can be a special place, I think that by and large, the presentation of the edges does feel like it's just good continuous elevation that feels industrial. So I'm going to give you the pass on that. And we don't need any sort of grid within this area. I agree with you on that. But as we move down to the next image, what I am not sure I agree with, well, isn't there another site plan?
It was up. It was before the yeah.
Oh, let's go back to the very top. Let's go back to the very top. I think that the kind of swoop hitting Fifth Avenue toward the right of the site plan, on which homes are, I think that you can be given the pass there because it's trying to align with Grant on the other side. But the little sort of swoopy alignment in the middle of the site doesn't really seem that necessary. I know that you're trying to circulate traffic, but by the time you're getting that deep in the site, the traffic is low, and it to me should emulate more of the grid of the neighborhood. So, in other words, if there's a misalignment of Grant Avenue here, and that it creates an opportunity for a little pocket park, then I think that should happen instead of this kind of suburban-like swoopy connection between your project south and project north. So I am looking next time for a firm explanation of, and perhaps a thought about why that can't be, that center part of the site can't be more grid-like. But going on, let's go down like sheet 5 or 6. I think it's sheet 4. And this is probably, this first rendering is the only thing I have a real problem with is that on this set of townhomes and facing Fifth Avenue, that in my mind, you should allow the parapet to be king on this and control all other things. I think that the sort of glass structure toward Fifth Avenue that breaks through the parapet could be fine, and the corner thing can be fine, but I don't think you can have both. And I think that you should allow the parapet and the cornice to inform the sort of strength of this particular mass. So I hope that you'll consider that. Going down to the next image, I think steps are great. I think the way you've controlled the grade, the elevation changes in grade with walls and stairs have been nice. You can go past this image. This is again showing too many things going on at the townhome. On all this is, to me, it's working. You've got good datums going on. You've got a water table. You've got good landscaping ideas, facts that allow landscape. And right here, I think this industrial building, I happen to agree with you that brick is fine for these expressions, and your architectural typography is, or typology, if you will, is right on mark as far as I'm concerned. And like to the right, the red brick and its little sort of Romanesque peaked roof is great. And I pretty much says it all. I think architecturally you're mostly there except for a couple things. And it's, to me, about the planning and how you're emulating and picking up the cues of grid in the right places and mass and sort of its industrial personality along the railroad and the others. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. And I'm not going to go on with a bunch of comments because I think everybody said it all. But so I'll go to just the townhomes. I think are going in the right direction. I would mimic Ben's concern about the corner with just the different heights. I'm not a big fan of maybe it's a stair that pops through the parapet and kind of breaks it up. The warehouse building. I really love the continuous dark mass along the railway. I think the way that you've broken up with the size of windows as it gets taller, I think it's a great solution. I can't tell in the renderings, but it looks like it says it's all fiber cement on that side. I really wish it was just painted brick to give it more of that authentic feeling versus fiber cement. I think that'll, I can get breaking it up around the windows and stuff like that, but I love for it to be brick. But I love the mass. I love there's no balconies on that. It really feels like a warehouse. Best that I think we've seen. And then my only other piece would be the stairs heading you up to the upper courtyard. I think that's great from a site planning move. I just wish maybe it had a little bit more elbow room, or it was more of an experience to go up and down those stairs. And maybe that's just a material thing because right now it's rendered as concrete, right? So it could be a very simple fix, but I think, it's a nice feature. And if that could be expressed a little bit more. And that's it. I'll leave it at that. So unless you guys have anything you want to kind of respond with, I know we're conceptual, so.
Yeah, I've got a couple pieces if that's okay.
Sure.
And thank you for all those. I think I've scribbled quickly enough to capture most of them. Commissioner Cook, you mentioned lighting and streetscape and so on and so forth. We actually have commissioned someone to do an environmental graphics package that is site related, and that will be a future study that will go with building lighting as well as, we are very, very hopeful to identify and to be able to source and place public art, whether in the form of murals or on site art as well. So just to let you know, that is occurring in the background. Will likely be separated out but incorporated, and I've certainly got it noted here to make sure we focus on that. Love the comments about sort of industrial lighting. Ben, Commissioner, sorry, with the grid, can we go back to the first part, the first slide, please? I've been in front of you guys so much, I feel like family. Okay. If in fact, and as I mentioned before, we are talking quite a bit about the lines. One of the things is that with our land control and the topics and the discussions and the timing of the future with the manufacturing owner right now, they are going to stay open for a time at which we are in construction. I mean, it's not like there's no date there. So I'm giving you guys a little bit of information into some of our business agreements. But all of that said, one of the purposes for the, as I cannot disagree with the statement of a suburban swoosh through there, is to try to deter truck traffic from going south. That was one of the purposes. Now, I think there's a way that we might be able to work on that and keep it going north up to the location on Fifth Avenue, where in fact Columbus Traffic is interested in a full-blown traffic impact study for a potential signal there, by the way. So that's the purpose of that alignment. All of that said, if we were to straighten that, and then as Detroit comes towards the bottom of the sheet or the east, such that that would go into a true perpendicular and basically create a larger landmass there, that's the type of movement you're speaking of, correct?
I think so. That jog should straighten out to be a north-south, and it would create a couple of awkward that are actually kind of hallmarks of the Italian Village area, awkward little places.
Yeah, I think what we're considering is that Grant would essentially continue south and then perpendicularly run into Detroit. So that's a thought right now that we're exploring with that concept that I just outlined. I want to be very clear and not get us too hopeful or wishy in one way or another. In Dan's comment of the alleyway continuing, we are looking at the potential of future site impacts, and between the warehouse building and that of the townhome, the insides of that are going to be kept for public use, for private use, I apologize, within the large building. Everything else that will exist in the ground plane in the future, including the amenity of the park, as well as future planning, is intended to be public. This would be the one area on here that is reserved for private use. I wanted to make sure that that is understood and noted. And last, the inspiration for the architecture on the industrial building. We were thrilled when Dan came up with this, and just to kind of give you our emotions and feelings on it. I do agree that some tweaks could be made. Those corners, I believe here in Columbus, Ohio specifically, we are sort of bred to think that industrial is collegiate to a degree because there's so much great industrial sort of historic design around the Ohio State University. But these pieces and parts are something that we're very passionate about. I believe that the corners are those that harken back to where the offices in the warehouses used to be. You know, they got into awkward spaces, therefore that's where the offices were held. And then you had sort of your middle area where the production truly occurred. So I don't know if that helps satisfy a couple of the more institutional or collegiate comments, but we're very passionate about that. And thank you for all of your comments.
Todd, you're muted.
Made it all the way to the end. Golly. Okay, thanks, Matt. And then Kimberly, do we need anything else or just a motion to adjourn?
Just a motion to adjourn. And since I don't think I'm going to see you guys till the end of the month, have happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
All right, somebody give me a motion.
So moved.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I heard a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor.
Me.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.